Hey everybody, welcome to the Tom Ferry Show. On the road, in a car, want to get right to it. There's no doubt, as I've been talking about and you've been feeling it, there are changes happening in the market. Now, I don't mean the world is falling apart under any circumstances. What is happening though, and you see it in your town, the areas that used to be selling in 2 seconds by just putting in the MLS are now sitting on the market, those properties, a little bit longer, which tells me that you and I, we need to get ahead of the curve on our pricing strategy, and we got to get comfortable asking for price reductions. I want to reiterate, as I've said a few times, certainly on Facebook Live and Instagram Live, that the vast majority of real estate professionals, maybe you watching this, call it 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 people, have never been in a market like we're going into. So skills matter, my friends. So let me just remind you, first and foremost, today when it comes to pricing, obviously you have to figure out, is this a speculative seller or is this a real seller? I think that the marketplace we're going into, unless the property is so exceptional, so unbelievable, so unique, so rare, taking that speculative listing, that seller that, if they could get their price, they would move, is just going to be a bad idea. Bad for you, bad for your timing, bad for your business. So we want to move away from the speculative sellers and we want to focus on the ones that absolutely have to sell their home. Not the ones that, feel like, oh my God, I got to give it away, but they have true motivation to move, moving up, moving down, moving out. You know the drill. So the first thing I would say to you is go back to early Tom Ferry shows where we talked about agents, for the most part, when you're competing, you can say this, like there's so many great lines. So I want to give you some lines. You're walking in the door, you're going into your listing presentation, you're starting your pitch, and you get to price and you say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, let's be clear. I could line up 1,000 agents out your door. And because we're all looking at the same data inside the MLS and others, because we're all looking at the same stats, we're all going to give you a price within a range of 1 or 2% because we're all looking at the same comps. So you're not hiring me just about price. You're hiring me to market and expose your home to the highest number of qualified buyers and the agents that represent them on the vast majority of platforms, digital, social, and everything. So we find that buyer for you. So let's talk about marketing. That, my friends, is an important line that you may want to start incorporating. Again, I can line up 1,000 agents out the door. We're all looking at the same stats. We all see the same comps. We're all going to give you between 1 and 2%, right? So it's not about an agent that gives you the highest or the lowest price. It's really about who's going to market your home the most successfully. And then you go into your marketing and you get the yes on the marketing, then you come back to price. Now, again, I've done a lot of work on the Tom Ferry Show on this specific subject, so you can go through and watch this in depth where I did one entire show on it, but I want to remind you high level. In a competitive situation, which we're in, they're going to be talking to other agents, and we know that the vast majority of agents aren't paying attention. They're going to overprice it. They're going to undercut their commissions. They're going to do whatever it takes to win. We need to counter that. We need to counter that and counter the discounters. So let's get into both those. The first counter is to say to the clients, sellers, you can meet with 10 agents. And I can tell you right now that 10 out of 10, minus myself, they're going to walk in and they're going to say, here's a price, right? Or worse, they're going to ask you, what do you guys want to sell your home for? And I'm not saying that that's not an appropriate question, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. Seller, but here's the reality. An agent that only has a one price pricing strategy is not the agent that gets the highest possible net proceeds for their clients in this environment. I, on the other hand, have a 3 pricing strategy empowering you to decide what is the right strategy for you guys in your circumstance. Let me explain. The 3 pricing strategies, number 1 is we go for the highest possible price. We want to break all records. And I actually will say to clients, what we're saying is, needle in the haystack. You're saying, Tom, I'm going to hire you for your marketing to find me the needle in the haystack. And look, it happens every now and then, but the vast majority of those homes in this market, they sit on the market because they're simply pricing it too high. But I acknowledge that that is a strategy. The second strategy, the most likely strategy, is we look at the comps together, we look at the information together, and we say, let's price it basically at what we would call fair market value. Fair market value is what the buyers are going to see. It's what the lenders are going to lend to. It is the norm in the market, regardless of, the things that we love about your home, which we all love about your home. people are still going to say, well, the data tells us this, and that's what we're going to write towards, right? Like, that's the second pricing strategy. My savviest of clients, my savviest of sellers will say to me, Tom, we don't want to give it away. We want to get the highest possible price. Let's do something different. And that's where I say, let's price it below fair market value. Let me explain before you get shocked. We're going to price it below fair market value because what do we know? When you have a nice home like yours in a great neighborhood like this, and you price it below fair market value, suddenly you have what's called that auction experience, that bidding war opportunity, where we do all the marketing that I agreed to a minute ago, all the things we're going to do to bring in the buyers, to bring in the agents. The world's going to know your home is for sale. We're going to unveil this thing beautifully. And when people see it just below fair market value, it becomes a frenzy. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm going to advise you that creating that frenzy means bidding wars. And when bidding wars happen, prices actually, in many cases, go above that second pricing strategy, above fair market value, and could even lead towards maybe the needle in the haystack. So I'm asking you, with knowing what you know now, seeing the comps, and we're in this presentation, right? You're in the moment, seeing what you see now, which of the three pricing strategies do you feel will get you the highest possible net proceeds, right? And bam. Now, obviously, you've already walked them through the comps. You've already showed them the needle in the haystack prices that are now expiring, that have been sitting on the market for 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, a year, depending upon your price point, especially in the high end. And you know what? The savviest of sellers are, if they're the non-speculative, I'll only sell if I get a crazy price seller. The normal sellers, guess what? They're going to go here or there. And when that happens, you win. So that's the first thing. And if not that presentation, those two little scripts I just gave you, if not those, what are you going to do? What are you going to do in a changing market to be ahead of the curve, to service your client at the highest level and make sure that, they're not sitting on the market for 3 months, 5 months, 6 months, right? We want to avoid that trap. So that's one consideration I want you to think about. The other one is price reductions. So if half the real estate agents in North America have not been in a marketplace like this, it's pretty safe to say they haven't set up that communication strategy, that tactic of communication with their sellers on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, where you're educating and informing them about the things that we need to do, what's happening in the market, the number of showings, etc. So the first thing I would ask you is, do you have that in place? Do you already say in all of your listing appointments, we're going to talk every Monday at 5 o'clock or every Monday between 4 and 6, and I'm going to update you on what's happened in the last week so you are empowered, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, to make the right decision and you're informed about what's happening in the market, right? So we say, here's the number of new listings, here's the number of pendings, here's the number of price amendments, here's the number of cancellations, expireds. You're informing them on what's going on and then feeding them the data around the showings and the feedback of your showings. If that isn't in place, if you're not informing them of the data, of the number of showings, of the feedback, of what's happening in the market, specifically properties like theirs and around, move up and above them, if you're not doing that, in my opinion, you haven't earned the right to ask for a price reduction. You haven't earned the credibility, right? The swag with them to ask for a price reduction. So you do all that, and then what do? Right? You're 30 days in, and you say 45 days in. You pick the time. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, we're on the phone. I take you through all the numbers, and then the script that I love, right, that we developed many years ago in the old market that perhaps we're coming back to, went something like this. So I want to give you an update on the market. Here's what's happening. Here's what's going on. Here's the data. Here's the showings. They're falling off. Here's the feedback. Here's what's happening. Closings, yada, yada. Expired, stolen, 9 yards. You're informed. And then I'm going to say to them, so here's what we have to decide. Right now, the agents in the marketplace, the overall market, and most importantly, the buyers have rejected our price. The agents, the market, and most importantly, the buyers have rejected not your price, our price. They've rejected our price. What would you like to do? What would you like to do? And you just shut up. What would you like to do? And they, well, could you market it more? Could you do another open house? Like, are you doing enough? Like, what about that one person that just came through? Let them go through all of that. What would you like to do? And, many of them, because you've earned the trust, because you've been educating them, you've been informing them what's going on, they're going to say to you, what do you recommend? And you're going to say, look, I'm going to strongly recommend we amend the price. Amend the price. Now, I know price reduction is what I led with. I think amend is just a softer word, right? It maybe doesn't feel as harsh for people, like, reduce the price, though it's okay if you say that, right? I recommend we amend the price to be in alignment with what the buyers are willing to pay in this marketplace. And then you make the recommendation of the price. Now, at the same time, if there's something about the house that is throwing the buyers off, that agents are giving you feedback on, it's also okay to say, at this point, I'm going to recommend we repackage, reposition, and amend the price, right? We repackage and reposition the home, and we amend the price. I know I'm giving you lots of scripts here. You're probably going to want to watch this 3 or 4 times. So I'm going to recommend we repackage and reposition and ultimately amend the price on your property to get it sold. Well, what do you mean? Well, as I mentioned to you, we probably needed to stage it. We probably need to redo the backyard. The lawn and the landscaping up front isn't great. The door of the building isn't ideal. The things that we can adjust that would just be in alignment for what buyers' expectations are today. So I wanted to share all this with you. What I really, really, really want to stress is, number one, I'm not being negative about the market. I'm just paying attention to it. The world goes in cycles, right? Everyone is talking about it. Some agents are really feeling it. Other agents don't feel it at all. That was the same thing in 2005. That was the same thing I heard for parts of the country in 2006 and by 7, 8, 9. And we're not expecting that level of craziness, that level of devastation, but we are expecting that adjustment. I just want you to be ahead of the curve. Skills matter. What you say matters. Knowing how to package yourself and position yourself, and the dialogue required to really properly inform and empower and educate a customer to make the right choice, not just list it at the highest possible price, move on, hope and pray to the real estate gods. So that's the message I wanted to share with you. Excuse maybe the little bouncy. We're in a car. Tristan's behind the camera. Can't wait to introduce you to him, right? We've got 3 videographers now inside the office. I'm super fired up. Expect lots of cool stuff coming. So give me some comments. What do you like about it? What are you nervous about? What's going on? How can I help? Facebook, Tom Ferry, YouTube. I'll respond to all of it. All right. Take care, guys. Remember, always your strategy matters. And now more than ever, your passion and your pricing absolutely rules.